Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Monroy. Today I'm going to walk you through a case from my practicum in juvenile drug court. We'll be looking at adolescent substance abuse, but more importantly, how that connects to trauma and family dynamics, and how a family based CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy approach, was used in the treatment. So, a case overview. This case, it involves a 16-year-old boy who is currently enrolled at Owensboro Day Treatment, which is a alternative school here in Owensboro, and he is also participating in juvenile drug court. So he was referred due to marijuana use along with ongoing truancy and behavioral concerns. And I'll break down what was going on behaviorally, but also what was happening underneath those behaviors. So the presenting problem at the time of the intake, there were several concerns. So he was using marijuana regularly, running away from home, refusing to attend school, and there was ongoing conflict within the home. So along with those behaviors, he was also experiencing anxiety, depression, and trauma-related symptoms. While the referral was for substance use, it quickly became clear that there was a lot more going on. Looking at the family system assessment, the family system, he lives with his adoptive mother and his adoptive sister. His adoptive father is no longer involved due to a divorce, which has added some instability to the home environment. So even before we get into the deeper dynamics, we can already see some disruption in the family structure. We talk about trauma and attachment. Trauma plays a really central role in this case. He was adopted from an orphanage in Kenya. His biological mother died during childbirth, and his father wasn't able to care for him, so this led him to place him in the orphanage that he did eventually get adopted from and brought here to the United States. He was also identified as a failure to thrive infant, which suggests early attachment disruptions. So from the very beginning, there were challenges with bonding, stability, safety, things that are really important for development. So those early experiences likely impacted how he regulates emotions, how he trusts others, and whether he feels a sense of belonging. Family dynamics. So in the current home, the environment, it's supportive, but it's also chaotic. There's frequent conflict, a lot of emotional escalation, and ongoing role defiance. This youth often presents as angry and oppositional, especially when he's not using substances. So, from a systems perspective, the family is really struggling with communication, boundaries, and managing emotions effectively. So, cognitive behavioral therapy, family based theory. The main approach used in this case was family based cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT, it focuses on the idea that our thoughts influence how we feel, and those feelings influence our behaviors. So at the same time, family conflict can reinforce those patterns. So this approach was helpful because it allowed us to address both the individual behaviors and the family system that was contributing to them. In terms of a treatment plan overview, the treatment plan, it focuses on four main areas: reducing substance use, improving school engagement, strengthening family communication, and addressing underlying mental health needs. So each of these areas, it connects directly back to what we saw in the assessment. This slide here, it just goes over, it gives that complete treatment plan handout. It is a printable version. All right, this next slide is going to be on those SMART goals. So these goals are broken down into specific measurable SMART goals, objectives. So, for example, consistent negative drug screens over time, full participation in the program, improved school attendance, regular involvement in family therapy. So using SMART goals, it helped make progress more more concrete and easier to track. Intervention techniques. Some different interventions were used throughout the treatment. First, cognitive restructuring, which helped him identify and challenge negative thought patterns that were contributing to his behaviors. Another one was coping skills. This training, it focused on things like emotional regulation, grounding techniques, and healthier ways to respond to stress. Family therapy, this is also a big part of treatment, especially for improving communication and reducing conflict in the home. In addition, the structure of drug court itself provides accountability through regular testing and court involvement. And finally, equine therapy was used as a more experimental approach to help build trust, increase emotional awareness, and strengthen connections in kind of a different setting than just your regular office therapy session. And it seems to be a big hit. Evaluations and outcomes. Progress in this case was measured in a few different ways. So formally, we looked at things like drug screen results, attendance records, overall program compliance, those types of things. Informally, we also considered therapist observations, feedback from the family, changes in behavior over time, those types of things. Outcomes and progress over time. So over time, there were noticeable improvements in this case. Substance use did decrease, school participation did improve, and that family communication, it started to get better, although it was still kind of a work in progress. So this youth, he also showed more awareness of his emotions and triggers. And it's important to note that progress wasn't linear, but overall there was a clear movement in a positive direction. So there was some steps back, but ultimately that step forward with positive movement was had. Key takeaways. So this case, it really highlights how adolescent substance use is often connected to deeper issues, especially trauma and family dynamics. So by using a family-based cognitive behavioral therapy approach, treatment was able to address not just the behavior, but also the underlying thoughts, the emotions, and those relationships. So it also shows how important it is to balance accountability, like the drug court requirements, and that therapeutic support. So overall, even in complex cases like this, meaningful change is possible. It's going to take the right supports that are in place to really help move that in a positive direction. So to let's go back to the treatment plan handout. And on this, I'll kind of go over it just to give you kind of an idea of the overall layout of this. And so that client overview, again, with that 16-year-old male enrolled in Owensboro Bay treatment, participating in juvenile drug court with those presenting concerns. So that substance abuse, the truancy, the family conflict, and that the trauma-related symptoms that are kind of going along with this. So that family-based cognitive behavioral therapy is that approach that was used. And those treatment goals, those SMART goals that we had talked about. So goal 1 was reduce substance use. So with this, those objectives are going to be provide negative drug screens for marijuana over a 12-week period, attend all drug court appointments, and comply with testing. Goal 2 would be improve school engagement. So the objectives there are going to be a 10-day treatment with no unexcused absences for at least 30 days. Demonstrate classroom participation, and that'll kind of be measured in the staff reports that are given out at the end of each day. Goal number 3 is improve family communication. So participating in weekly family therapy sessions and using at least 2 coping skills during conflict. And goal 4, address mental health needs. And so those objectives are going to be identifying triggers related to anxiety, depression, and trauma, and demonstrating use of those coping strategies. So some of those that we are going over will be grounding, cognitive reframing, that type of thing. And so with those intervention techniques being cognitive restructuring, identifying and challenging negative thought patterns, coping skills, so training in coping skills, emotional regulation, grounding and anger management, and then of course that family therapy component, which is so critical in cases like these. So improving that communication and the boundaries, and helping with that conflict resolution. And then behavioral accountability, of course, will be administered through the drug court, so drug testing, court appearances, and then of course there's some incentives and consequences that may take place as a youth moves through that program. Equine therapy. Now this is it's an experimental therapy. It's not I guess based in research really. I think that's still going on. But what I've seen of it is a big hit. It builds a lot of trust, emotional awareness, and connection, especially in family therapy. There's just something about a horse that helps families to connect. And so to talk about those formal measurements of the progress, we're looking at drug screen results, school attendance records, program compliance, and then kind of those informal measures are going to be that therapist observations, the family reports, and the behavioral changes over time that we see. So again, to wrap it up, the expected outcomes here is going to be to reduce substance use in this youth, in this case, improve school participation, increase emotional awareness, and then improve that ongoing family communication. So addressing both behavior and that underlying trauma within the family system, it increases the likelihood of meaningful and sustained change.